Hey, fourth graders, this is area, pages 285 to 286 in your arithmetic book. So I do have something new to teach you guys. But before we go into that, let's review what we learned last time. So last time we talked about something called a perimeter. The perimeter is pretty much the distance around an object. So let's pretend in my brown square here, one side is 5 yards, and we know that if it's a perfect square, all sides would be equal lengths, right? So if this is 5 yards, this would also be 5 yards. And this bottom side would be 5 yards. And this side on the left is also 5 yards. So we learned that to find a perimeter of an object, all you have to do is just add up the lengths of all the sides. So in this case, it would be 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5. And another 5. All four sides is 5. So this will give me a 20-yard perimeter, okay? Yeah, so this would be really good if I was, let's say, trying to build a fence, right? If I was trying to build a fence around my brown square here, around my house, I would need to figure out perimeter, right? Because I'm building it around my home like this, right? So yeah, so I would need to buy 20 yards worth of fencing in order to surround my home here. But I have a question for you guys. What if I want to figure out how much um, grass I would need to buy in order to fill this inside part here with grass, okay? So let's pretend I want to see this brown part here. If I want to cover it all in grass, how much grass do I need to buy? Would perimeter help me with this? No, right? Because if I figure out the perimeter and I got 20 yards, am I only trying to fill the outside of my home? This outside, the border here? Am I only trying to fill that border with grass? Of course not. I'm trying to fill in the whole surface area here, right? Even the brown part here with grass, not just the outside edge. That'd be kind of silly, right? That would look something like this, right? No, that's not what I want. I want the whole inside also to be covered in grass. So how do I figure out how much grass I need to buy? All right. So this is where area comes in. So let's look up our definition for area. So area measures the surface of a shape. Area is found by dividing the shape into square units. So if I want to figure out how much grass I need to fill my need to buy in order to fill this this brown box here of grass, I would need to figure out the area of a shape. The area measures the surface of a shape, not just the border, not just the perimeter, right? Okay. All right. So one way to measure an area is first we have to break it up into square units. If I did that on my shape, it would look something like this. So here I broke up my shape into square units, meaning I broke it into like small little squares, kind of like chunks of squares here. Okay. All right. Kind of like if this was like a brownie, then if I cut it up into squares, equal squares, that's one step I can do. And after I divided it into a bunch of squares, I can count each one of these squares. And each one of these squares, brown squares here, is actually, here, let me color this in. Each one of these squares here, I can calculate it as will be measured as 1 yard by 1 yard. Okay, so each one of these squares represents 1 yard by 1 yard. So 3 feet by 3 feet, all right? And this is actually called a square yard. Okay, so remember square, the definition of a square is a rectangle, okay, meaning it has 4 sides and 4 right angles. A rectangle with 4 equal sides. That means each side has to be the same length. So if one side is 1 yard, that means the other three sides also have to be 4 yards, right? Yeah. So this is 1 square yard. So just one of these squares. So this square here is 1 yard by 1 yard. All right. So I can break up my shape into squares. Okay. And one really easy trick to figure out how much um, what my area is. It's just by simply counting the squares. So I can do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. So my area for this square here will equals 25 square yards. 25 square yards. All right? So pretty easy, right? So that's all you have to do for this lesson anyways. All you have to do is just count up the squares and you'll get your square yards. So that means that if I were to go to Home Depot, I would need to buy, let's see, oops, sorry. I would need to buy, let me move this to the front more. So I would need to buy 25 of these square yards, okay? You can actually go to Home Depot and buy something like this. So I need to buy 25 of these pieces of grass, squares of grass. Go to Home Depot and buy 25 of these. And once I buy 25 of them, I'll be able to cover this entire area with grass. All right. So let me see here. Let me color this in with grass. Oops, that's too much grass. All right, there we go. Okay, so I would need 25 of these square yards of grass to cover the whole area here with grass. So that's pretty much it. It's pretty easy. But instead of me, just counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, instead of just me counting each square, that takes a long time. One thing I could have done is just multiply the bottom one side 5 yards. I could just multiply 5 yards and multiply it by my height, which is also 5 yards. And 5 yards times 5 yards, 5 times 5 equals 25 yards, right? 25, sorry, that's just 25 yards, 25 square yards. Okay? All right. Square, starting to write into the grass area. Square yards. Okay, that would have been easier for me to do. But we're going to learn more about that on our next lesson, I believe. All right, so that is area. Let's go over our worksheets. So, the first one says, it's just a summary of what we just learned about area. It's pretty much, measuring the surface of a simple closed region, right? So area measures this whole entire surface of the shape, not just measures all of this, right? All of this, not just the outside border. Remember, perimeter measures just the outside of the shape, all right? So this is perimeter, and area is all the whole surface area, the whole inside of the shape too. All right, so find the square unit in each figure. Okay, so this is really easy. For these shapes, all we need to do is count them up. Count each square. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it's pretty tedious, but count all these squares. And once you're done counting up all the squares, you would write down your answer. In this case, once you're done counting, you would get 80. So there's 80 squares here, so you would write 80 in square. Since we don't know if it's square feet or square yards, so we don't know if each one of these squares here, we're not sure if it's 1 yard by 1 yard or 1 feet by 1 feet. It could be any one of these units, right? So since he doesn't tell us, we would just say 80 square units. That's all you have to do. So write your answer, count up the squares, and write it in square units. Really important that you write square units so we know what you're talking about. Is it 80 feet, 80 inches, 80 square, yards? Yeah. Okay, so same thing with this C here. Count up all the squares and just write how many square units, how many squares can fit into the shape. All right, number 2, count the number of square inches in the rectangle. Is there a better way to find the area without dividing the object into square inches and counting the squares? Of course, yes. So we would count up all the squares, and your answer needs to be in square inches. So whatever number you counted, and write square inches next to it. And is there a better way to do this instead of counting each square? Of course, right? I just taught you guys. In our example with the 5 yards by 5 yards, I said you could have just multiplied one side by one side, or usually it's base times height. So usually the base, the bottom side times the height, which is also 5 yards. Base times height, I could have multiplied those two and gotten the same answer, right? Instead of cutting it into small squares and counting the squares. So you would say in this case, she's right. Since we know that there is an easier way, a better way. You can say yes. You can say multiply the base times the height. I write it down here so you guys can actually see it. Okay. So yeah. All right. Next page. Name their geometric figures. I know most of you guys probably lost that page that shows all the shapes and what they're called. But you can go back to my lesson on page 261. No, sorry, 269. On page 269, there's a page on there. On my lesson for page 269 video, you would find that page that shows all the different geometric shapes and what they're called. All right, so let's go ahead and go back to that video. Okay, divide and check. Okay, done these before already. Let's see if I can give you some hints for the word problems. All right, solve these story problems. So make sure you guys just attempt these. I know a lot of kids never liked doing math word problems. They can be kind of difficult, but just try. Okay, so math word problems, they really help to make the math more relevant to your life, more real in your life. All right, so 5A, from New York, it is 58.1 miles to Trenton and 186.5 miles to Baltimore. How much further is it to Baltimore than to Trenton? So here's two numbers we see. Our question is, how much further is it to Baltimore than to Trenton? So for this question, it's very simple. Whenever you see how much more or how much further, same as how much more, you're subtracting. So what two numbers are you subtracting? I'm sure you guys can figure that out. All right, B. Sabrina gets $5.25 a week for her allowance. How much will she receive in 7 weeks? So if she gets $5.25 in 1 week, how much will she get in 7 weeks? Okay, is that a multiplying, dividing, subtraction, or addition problem? I'll let you figure that out. Find the products, you just multiply as usual. All right, find the perimeter of these polygons. Use the correct formula. Make sure you use the correct formulas. So remember the perimeter of a rectangle, that's L equals 2 times L. Sorry, not L. Perimeter equals 2 times L plus 2 times W. So perimeter equals 2 times the length plus 2 times the width. All right, add those two together, you'll get the perimeter of a shape, of a rectangle. Okay, so these two are the A and B are for rectangles, but for square, remember to find the perimeter of a square, you just do 4 times S, 4 times one side. Since we know that in a square, all 4 sides are the same length, right? Yeah. All right. So that's pretty much it for this lesson. Okay. Take care.